We want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada.
We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them.
We just don't need their product.
These are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us.
A 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
Canada will respond to the U.S. auto tariffs. And today I'm announcing that the Government of Canada will be responding with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA.
T began with a sentence that stunned both nations. We don't really want cars from Canada, we just don't need their product. With those words, Trump ignited a political firestorm. Standing before cameras, he announced a 25% tariff on all Canadian-made vehicles entering the United States, a move he claimed would protect American jobs and push auto production back into Detroit. But the reality? This wasn't about protection. This was economic intimidation. Trump's message was simple. Canada needs America more than America needs Canada. He pointed out that Canada supplied roughly 20% of cars on U.S. roads, dismissing the contribution as unnecessary and replaceable. But experts immediately flagged a problem. The modern auto industry doesn't operate on national pride. It operates on deeply connected cross-border networks, with parts crossing the U.S.-Canada border up to 7 times before assembly. Trump wasn't just pulling a political move. He was pulling a pin. And the explosion hit the Canadian auto sector instantly. From Windsor to Oshawa, shipments stalled, factories hesitated, and workers found themselves staring into the fog of uncertainty. But this wasn't the end. This was the moment Carney stepped in. Within hours of Trump's announcement, Canada's automotive heartland felt the tremors. Ontario, home to some of the biggest plants in North America, saw immediate disruption. Parts shipments slowed, inventory piles grew, and the fear was real. A Windsor plant temporarily shut down, impacting more than 35,000 workers. Suppliers scrambled to adjust production schedules. Truck routes froze. Community economies braced for the worst. But here's what made this moment uniquely dangerous. Canada's auto industry isn't simply a business sector. It's a national backbone. It supports over 500,000 direct and indirect jobs, billions in annual trade, hundreds of interconnected suppliers who rely on minute-by-minute logistics. A sudden shock isn't just economic, it's human. It hits families, mortgages, union workers, small-town economies, and long-term regional stability. Trump's move wasn't a warning shot. It was a full-blown strike on one of Canada's most critical industries, an industry built on trust, integration, and decades of collaboration. Yet in the political noise, one figure remained strikingly calm, Prime Minister Mark Carney. While Trump flexed, Canada prepared something far more dangerous than outrage, a strategy. When the U.S. tried to corner Canada, Carney didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He didn't escalate mindlessly. He calculated. And then he fired back with a countermeasure that stunned Washington. Canada would impose its own 25% tariff on U.S.-made vehicles that violated North American trade agreements. This wasn't symbolic. This was surgical. Carney matched Trump's aggression dollar for dollar. But with a twist, Canada's tariff directly targeted vehicles that depended heavily on Canadian components and labor. In other words, the U.S. automakers who thought they were being protected suddenly realized they were in the line of fire. Carney's counter-tariff exposed the fragility of the entire U.S. stance, and it sent one clear message. Canada will not be bullied. This wasn't emotional retaliation. It was economic chess. While Trump relied on shock value, Carney relied on intelligence, using the interconnected nature of supply chains as leverage. It was a masterclass in calm, strategic leadership. And for the first time, the U.S. realized that Canada wasn't reacting. Canada was leading. Trump's rhetoric implied a simple picture. Canada builds cars. The U.S. can replace them. Problem solved. But real experts knew this was fantasy. North American auto production operates like a 3-country super network, linking Canada, the U.S., and Mexico in a deeply integrated supply chain. Modern cars aren't built, they're orchestrated, and one disruption can collapse the entire system. The uploaded transcript reveals this clearly. Parts can travel between Canada, the US, and Mexico multiple times before a single vehicle is assembled. A 25% tariff doesn't just hit Canada. It hits American workers, American factories, and American suppliers. The sudden disruption created production delays, increased manufacturing costs, trucking route blockages, component shortages, plant slowdowns on both sides of the border. Even U.S. workers became collateral damage. Because when Canada pauses, U.S. factories pause with it. You cannot separate the Canadian and American auto industries without breaking both. And that's where Trump miscalculated. Carney understood the interdependence. Trump underestimated it. And that difference would soon reshape the narrative entirely. Behind the economic headlines are real people, the workers who keep the industry alive. The transcript captures the stakes powerfully. Tens of thousands of workers, suppliers, and families rely on these networks. When Trump dropped his tariff hammer, it wasn't just governments clashing. It was workers facing. Uncertain paychecks, temporary layoffs, reduced hours, halted production lines, potential job losses, a cloud of anxiety over the future in communities like Windsor, Oshawa, Detroit, and Toledo. The auto industry isn't just an employer, it's a lifeline. Yet while Trump marketed the tariff as a pro-American job move, the reality was the opposite. His unilateral decision blindsided not only Canada, but American auto companies that relied on Canadian-made engines, transmissions, and semiconductor components. Factories on both sides of the border were forced to delay assembly, redirect shipments, absorb sudden price hikes, and brace for long-term disruption. But amid this chaos, Carney's approach stood out. He didn't play politics with workers' livelihoods. He didn't escalate recklessly. He acted to stabilize the industry, not weaponize it. And that's why Canada's counterstrike hurt the U.S., but didn't devastate Canadian workers. Trump's tariff wasn't just aggressive. It was poorly calculated, economically short-sighted, and deeply misaligned with modern manufacturing reality. The transcript puts it bluntly. Trump's approach was reckless, short-sighted, and destabilizing. He believed American automakers could instantly replace Canadian imports. But that ignored decades of joint engineering, shared supply lines, and co-developed technology. For example, Ford relies on Canadian-made engines, GM depends on Canadian aluminum and component processing, Stellantis uses Canadian tooling and robotics infrastructure. Removing Canada from the equation isn't possible without dismantling the entire system. The U.S. media quickly realized this. Industry insiders called the tariff a self-inflicted wound. Analysts warned it would raise American car prices by $1,500 to $3,000 per vehicle. Meanwhile, Carney's strategic counter gave Canada the moral and economic high ground. Trump's attempt to pressure Canada backfired, exposing that America needed Canadian cars far more than he admitted. This was the turning point. Trump thought he was attacking Canada. He accidentally attacked his own industry. Leadership isn't measured by avoiding crises. It's measured by how you respond. And Carney responded with brilliance. The transcript highlights this clearly. Carney's leadership emphasized careful planning, targeted countermeasures, and protection of Canadian jobs. Instead of panicking or escalating recklessly, he executed a three-part strategy. 1. Protect Canadian workers. He ensured factories paused, not collapsed. Support systems prevented mass layoffs. Supply networks were stabilized. 2. Match U.S. pressure without overreacting. The 25% countertariff mirrored U.S. aggression, but kept international law on Canada's side. 3. Expose the weakness of Trump's plan by reminding the world that the North American auto industry is interconnected. Carney reframed the debate. Trump wasn't protecting U.S. workers. He was endangering them. The result? Canada emerged looking strong, rational, and strategically superior, while Trump appeared reckless and uninformed. Carney turned what should have been a crippling blow into a story of resilience. And the world noticed. This confrontation was never just about cars. It was about leadership styles and the consequences those styles have on real people. The transcript sums up the contrast. Canada's response demonstrated strategy, intelligence, and resilience, while Trump relied on intimidation. Trump's leadership style, Loud, aggressive, impulsive, politically motivated, economically disconnected Carney's leadership style. Calculated, calm, fact-based, worker-focused, long-term, strategic, the result. Trump's tariffs created instability without results. Carney's strategy created strength through adversity. Canada proved that small nations with smart leadership can stand up to global giants and win. Workers saw it. Economists saw it. The international community saw it. And most importantly, the United States saw it. Canada didn't just survive this showdown. Canada won the narrative. This entire battle, from Trump's declaration that America doesn't need Canadian cars to Carney's precision counterstrike, reveals the truth about modern political power in North America. This wasn't just a tariff fight. It was a test of resilience, a test of economic intelligence, a test of leadership under pressure, and Canada passed that test with unwavering strength. Trump tried to use raw aggression against one of the most interconnected industries on the continent. He underestimated how deeply Canada and the U.S. rely on each other. He underestimated supply chains, worker solidarity, and the economic architecture of modern manufacturing. But most importantly, he underestimated Canadian leadership. Carney didn't rise to the noise. He rose above it. He matched Trump's power with precision, strategy, and an iron commitment to protecting Canadian workers. He turned what should have been an economic crisis into a defining moment of national resilience. And today, the North American auto industry is stronger, smarter, and more self-aware because of this confrontation. Why does this matter right now? Because the global economy is entering an era of uncertainty. Supply chain pressures, geopolitical competition, and nearshoring transitions are reshaping manufacturing for the next generation. What happened in this showdown is a blueprint for how nations, especially mid-sized economies like Canada, can defend their interests with confidence and integrity. This isn't just history. This is a preview of the battles to come, and the kind of leaders we'll need to face them. If you're still watching, you're exactly the kind of viewer who understands what's really at stake in moments like this. So here's what I want you to do. Backhand index pointing right, drop a comment telling us whether you think Trump's tariff move was strategy or sabotage. Backhand index pointing right, share this video with someone who still believes Canada is the junior partner in this relationship. Backhand index pointing right, hit subscribe so you never miss the political breakdowns the mainstream media refuses to touch. Backhand index pointing right and like the video if you believe Canada deserves leaders who fight back with intelligence, not fear. This is Red Leaf Politics, where facts hit harder than speeches, and where we break down power the way it actually works. Thanks for watching. Stay sharp, stay informed, and as always, stay loud, Canada.